The people screaming at you right now are not your enemies. They are your mirror, and what they see in you are that stillness. That silence is the one thing they cannot control. That terrifies them more than anything you could ever say back. You have spent your entire life believing that if you just explained yourself clearly enough, people would finally understand you. You thought that if you showed your reasoning, defended your choices, and responded to every accusation with the right words, the noise would stop and the respect would come. It never did. Because here is what no one told you: explanation is confession. Every time you opened your mouth to justify yourself, you were not clarifying, you were submitting. You were handing over the keys to your psychological architecture and letting whoever was screaming at you walk straight through the front door. Machiavelli understood something that most men spend their entire lives refusing to accept. Power is not loud. Power does not explain. Power does not flinch. Power simply exists and lets everything else orbit around it. Look at the image again. One man, eyes closed, surrounded by chaos, by rage, by pointed fingers and open mouths demanding a reaction. And he gives them nothing. Not contempt, not smugness, not even acknowledgement, just silence. That is not weakness. That is the most dangerous posture a man can hold, because it communicates one thing above all else. You are not the authority over me. You do not get to decide when I respond. You do not get to decide what I feel. And without that power over me, you have nothing. This is the first cold law. Reaction is surrender. The moment you react to the moment your voice rises, your hands move, your face betrays what is happening inside you. You have told your opponent everything they need to know. You have confirmed that they have reach, that their words land, that they matter enough to move you. And in that movement, you have shifted the power dynamic completely. They were screaming from a position of desperation. You responded from a position of weakness. Now they are in control of the frame, and you are playing their game on their terms. Machiavelli wrote that a prince who shows his wounds invites more blades. The same principle governs every social and psychological interaction you will ever have. Stillness is armor, silence is strategy, and the man who refuses to react has not lost the argument, he has already won something far more important. The second law: those who demand your explanation have already decided the verdict. This is something most people never fully absorb. When someone confronts you, whether it is an enemy, a critic, a person who resents your progress, they are not asking for the truth. They are asking for ammunition. They want your words. They want your justification. They want the raw material to continue building their case against you. And every sentence you offer them is raw material. Every explanation is a brick they will use to wall you in. The correct response is not a better explanation. The correct response is to recognize the interrogation for what it is and refuse to participate in it entirely. You do not owe your psychology to anyone who approaches you with aggression. You owe them nothing. The third law: your silence will be misread, and that misreading is your greatest weapon. When you go quiet, people will fill that silence with their own fears. They will project onto your stillness every insecurity they carry inside themselves. They will call you cold, arrogant, disconnected. And in doing so, they will reveal themselves completely while you reveal nothing. Machiavelli understood that the prince, who is difficult to read, is impossible to manipulate. You cannot be leveraged if no one knows where your levers are. The man who explains himself is a map. The man who stays silent is a locked room. And people fear what they cannot enter. The fourth law: detachment is not indifference. This is the distinction that separates the man who uses silence as power from the man who simply has nothing to say. Detachment means you have removed your emotional stake from the outcome of other people's perceptions of you. It means their approval is not your oxygen. Their anger does not become your emergency. You observe what is happening with a kind of cold clarity to see the manipulation, the provocation, the performance, and you make a deliberate choice not to feed it. This is not passivity. This is perhaps the most active and disciplined psychological posture a man can hold, because the instinct is always to respond. The instinct is always to correct, to defend, to justify. And resisting that instinct every single time requires a level of self-mastery that most men will never develop, because they never even realized it was something to develop. The fifth law: The man who never explains becomes the man who is never questioned. This is where Machiavelli's thinking becomes almost prophetic. When you establish a pattern of non-reaction, when you make it known through behavior, rather than words that you do, not engage with provocation, something shifts in the environment around you. People stop testing you, not because they respect you in any soft, sentimental sense, but because they have learned through experience that there is no return on the investment of trying to destabilize you. They get nothing from it. No emotion, no reaction, no validation of their aggression. And so the aggression eventually stops. Not because you asked it to, not because you negotiated peace, but because you starved it of the one thing it needed to survive, your response. Now hear the transformation that is available to you. The man in that image did not become unreadable by accident. He became unreadable through a deliberate and sustained commitment to one principle. My inner world belongs to me, not to the crowd, not to the critics, not to anyone pointing a finger and demanding that he react. That boundary, that invisible, impenetrable boundary between what is happening outside him and what is permitted to happen inside him, is the boundary that every great strategist, every cold and respected man in history has maintained with absolute discipline. You build that boundary not by becoming harder, not by becoming numb. You build it by becoming clear. Clear about what matters. Clear about what you are building. Clear enough that the noise around you becomes genuinely irrelevant. Not as a coping mechanism, but as a natural consequence of having a direction. That is more important than any distraction. The man who reacts is controlled by his environment. The man who explains is controlled by the opinion of others. But the man who goes still, who closes his eyes in the middle of the chaos, who lets the screaming wash past him like weather, that man is controlled by nothing outside himself. And that is the only kind of freedom that actually means something. You have been performing your inner life for an audience that never deserved access to it. Every time you explained, you were performing. Every time you reacted, you were performing. The performance ends the moment you decide that your stillness is worth more than their understanding. Because it is. Your silence will unsettle people who expected submission. Your calm will disturb people who needed your chaos to feel safe. And your refusal to explain will force the world to reckon with you on your terms. Or not at all. Most men spend their entire lives waiting to be understood. The dangerous ones stopped waiting. They are still watching you, waiting for you to speak. Don't